really is just at this point kind of an extension of my body.
It seems like it.
And I guess it's weird. I don't think about how comfortable I am. And a lot of times we'll be in a city or something, or just like now, I didn't know where to park, right? So I just parked somewhere kind of close and I go skate. And I feel way better about doing that than like parking and then walking somewhere. And it just, I know I can get around people and sort of be indiscreet and stealthy.
And wait,
for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like,
I get a lot of do a kickflips out from car windows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. That's my curse that I that's my burden I carry.
I'm seeing the other side.
That's sort of a phenomenon, sort of a social media thing going on. No, where the board is actually a contraption, right?
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't really understand what that is. There's a select few people doing that.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple where they actually have figured out how to make their board grind and then do a flip around a rail as they jump back on it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's very specialized though. I can't say that's a movement. It's just a few key people that are doing it. Skating went through a different waves of disciplines basically, and in the early 90s it was all street, right? And so what I did was vert skating. That was kind of dying out, so I was skating street a lot too, and I realized I was not fit to be a street skater. The third time I rolled my ankle, like both ankles twice. Then the third time, the other one, I was like, I don't want to do handrails anymore. This is not working for me. This impact is, I'm not going to be able to skate anymore if I keep doing this.
Yeah, I see these kids.
Yeah, for sure. And there's all kinds of different styles. So there's tech styles where it's more people are skating ledges and benches and they're flipping their board, grinding, flipping out, stuff like that, where it's low impact but super technical. And then there's just the stuntmen who are doing the big rails, the big gaps, jumping fences. And I think there's a pretty deep history there of how it got there. But skating was, just more like a transportation toy. And then it was really the Dogtown crew that took it to a new level where it was like, oh, you can use this to do aerials and skate swimming pools. And they were just trying to emulate their surfing. And so then skate parks started cropping up. Skating got popular in the late 70s, early 80s. And then it was all swimming pools. And then maybe like 4 years later, the skateboarding kind of started falling in popularity. The skate parks couldn't get their insurance anymore because the liability was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And so then the streets became the skate park because there was nowhere else to go. And there were a few key skaters that figured out how to use like the urban landscape as a skate park. And then that was it. Like it was all bets are off. Skating kind of took off in the underground as the street culture, street sport. And then people started doing handrails, ledges, benches, stairs, because they just didn't have park. I think what it did, I mean, especially in the last 10 years, it evened the playing field. You didn't have to live in Southern California. You didn't have to live in New York or be near where the industry is. You could just be in your little town. As long as you're putting out content and it's progressive, you're going to get noticed. And I think that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, and people are making careers as skaters now in the most unlikely places. Mostly longevity by surviving the first wave of skating in the 80s, or it was actually kind of the second wave of skating in the 80s, where I had a pretty good career. I was doing really well in competition, especially in the mid to late 80s. And then as skating kind of went underground, I never quit and started my own skate company in 1992. And then when the X Games came into play, I was still kind of on top of my game. I did really well there. And I think a lot of people carried over my name from that first round where they were skaters in the 80s and now maybe their kids skate. And they're like, oh, I remember that guy. And their kids are watching me on the X Games. And then when our video game came out in 1999, that's when everything changed, for sure. I turned pro when I was 14. Yeah. But I mean when I say that, it might seem magical, but at the time, skating was this little tiny scene. So when I literally went pro, I was filling out an entry form to a competition, and I had already reached the top of the amateur ranks, and there was a little box that said pro and a little box that said am. So I checked the pro box, and that was it. I was pro. No one was offering me a contract. No one had champagne, you know what I mean? And like my coach I'll never forget, Stacey Peralta was looking over my shoulder, and I checked it, and he's like, okay.
That's it.
That was it. Yeah.
Wow. So, but you had a coach.
We had a team manager. He's the one who put me on what is now considered the Bones Brigade, but the company was Pal Peralta, and that was sort of the elite crew of skaters in the early '80s. And I was the super young newbie on the team, like super skinny, dorky kid, and a lot of the guys that were established were like, "This guy, really?"
What is that, Jimmy? Oh, is that you?
That's me at age 17.
Wow. Time flies. Does it freak you out looking at that?
I think it's. I mean, I see that photo making the rounds, so it's cool. So by the time I turned 17, I was kind of doing well in competition and making money. So I'm literally sitting outside of my house that I bought while I was a senior in high school in that photo.
Whoa.
Challenge trying to stay focused on schoolwork when you have the party house.
That's crazy.
Like when you're a senior, oh, this so-and-so's parents are out of town. Party's at his house. Like my parents were never home. So everyone's going to my house. It was my dad's idea.
Really?
Yeah, because he saw me really not understanding finances or how lucky I was. And I was just throwing money away, you know, on cars and trips and sharper image and just the most ridiculous things. And then he's like, I really think you should invest your money.
Did you get a massage chair? Sharper image massage chair? Did you get one of those?
No, but I bought okay, this is a long story, but my sister and I went in on a tanning bed together. It was like, I used it once. She used it because it was helpful to her skin. I'm not going to say why, but you know, she had a legitimate reason for it, but I was like, yeah, tanning bed. Like, I'm never going to go tan, but you know, you got to have it.
Where did you live at the time?
In North County, San Diego, Carlsbad. Exactly. Yeah, that was it. Well, the first time I went, I was like, why am I laying in there? I could just go to the beach. I could just go. But I mean, it almost, you know, when you're that age and you're doing well, you think that somehow that's like a status symbol. No, I had 3 roommates.
Oh God, that's so
all
crazy.
Of the same age. One was a little bit older. He was a good friend of mine, pro skater, and he was the only guy that actually had a job. And he was tortured for like 2 years because we were up super late all the time, making noise, and he'd have to get up at 7 a.m. go to work. He was doing line stripping, like back when you'd have to color separate for magazines and stuff like that.
What a bummer for him.
Such a bummer. Yeah. And he's still trying to make it as a pro skater, but clearly he had to get a job and
it must be exhausted too.
Yeah, he would leave these kind of nasty notes for us in the morning. I don't know. I think it was more because my parents valued education. My mom was an educator. She was actually like taught in a college.
Oh wow. So
I felt that I was going to be a disappointment if I didn't at least graduate high school. And I was always pretty advanced. Like I was in the gifted program and, I was a grade ahead in a lot of the subjects. So by the time I was a senior, I only needed 4 classes to graduate. So I went to school until lunchtime every day and then I was out.
Oh, wow.
And then I got my diploma and my dad not strongly suggested I go look at colleges. And so just to humor him, I went looking at like a city college in our area and looked around the campus. I was like, yeah, oh, that's cool, I guess, sure. And I just knew that it was my opportunity to really chase this and to embrace all these opportunities I was getting. I mean, I was literally out of high school onto a Hollywood movie set, Gleaming the Cube.
Oh, that's right.
So school, and then moved to North Hollywood for 2 months to shoot the movie.
That was like what, 88,
I think, 87.
88. Wow. God, I'm remembering that.
It's deceiving though. I mean, especially when you have that much success at a young age, you think it's never going to end.
Right.
You think you're invincible. And I definitely sometimes treated it as such, where I was just like, woo, just throwing money away. And like I said, my dad was encouraging me to save it. And then it all came crashing down in about like 1991, 92, where my paycheck was all based on royalties of skate products. And it started getting cut in half every month.
Whoa.
Just from lack of interest, lack of sales. And just skating was considered a fad. And it was just like, And also my style of skating, I skated the ramps, right? So I'm a vert skater. Vert skating was just instantly not cool because street skating had taken over. So I was considered this dinosaur, and it was just like, you're out. Skating's not cool, and you're not cool in skating.
Wow.
So it was rough. That was like, I would say sort of 92 to 95-ish were very lean.
Do?
Yes and no. I knew I wouldn't quit skating because I just loved it. Like I never did it for the money. You know, I started, there were no one could be rich or famous from skating. So that was never the objective. It was just because I loved what it brought to me. I loved the self-confidence it brought to me. I loved the creativity. I loved the misfit crew, the community of it. And so when things started to go south financially, I knew I wouldn't quit. I just had to figure out how to make ends meet. And I actually had a video editing system, and I learned how to do that very early, like right when nonlinear video started happening. I had a system, so I started doing freelance work for companies, doing video editing. Super random, some skate companies. And then I did exhibitions, like we were doing exhibitions in amusement park parking lots. We weren't even in the amusement park. We're like in the parking lot as people walk in as entertainment, you know, and doing that for like $100 a day.
Wow.
But it allowed me to skate and allowed me to pay the rent, and it was like, that was good enough for me. It felt like it was heading that way.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was just trying to do whatever I could. So I was trying to learn different skills. And you know, maybe skating wasn't going to pay the bills, but I couldn't let it go from my life.
Wow.
I guess.
I mean, in a lot of ways, right?
It was, it started to slowly come back, really when the X Games came into play. Where suddenly we were on TV, and kids could see how much skating had evolved. Well, the whole public could see how much skating had evolved from the time that they last saw it in the late 80s. And then they were seeing it, and it was just like, whoa, this is for real. You know, this is, you know, for lack of a better word, this is a sport. These guys are doing acrobatic things, and it takes discipline, and it takes determination, and kids recognize that. And I think that's really when skating started to spark again.
And this is like 95-ish?
Probably more closer to 96, 97. The first X Games was a little strange, a little scattered, because it was like skateboarding and bungee jumping and rock climbing and sky surfing.
They were
and
trying to figure it out.
They were just throwing everything. And then it really rubbed us the wrong way, because suddenly we were labeled as extreme. And it was like, what do you do? I skateboard. Oh, you're into extreme sports. No, I skateboard. I don't know what.
Yeah, that's a sports
It was
category.
just anything. Yeah, and that was, I mean, it was coined by ESPN. So that's why they changed it to X Games. So the first one was Extreme Games 95. They changed it to X Games in 96. I think they really found their niche a few years later, when they really started to weed out all the random stuff, and it was more about skateboarding, BMX, motocross. Like, those became really the highlights and the reason people were tuning in. And then that's when things really exploded.
And what were like the...
It was street and vert. And
So
really, because ESPN recognized that the vert is a spectator sport.
Yeah, that was going to say.
Yeah, for sure. And then once they got in, once they evolved that into what they call the big air ramps, the mega ramps, then it was just like the aerials, and the risk factor was tenfold.
Yeah,
I think when things started to really explode with that, with the big air thing, and then Jake Brown had his big accident, the one that kind of everyone saw, went viral. You've probably seen him where he's just falling from like 30 feet up. That's when they started to, I don't want to say tone it down, but really they started to figure out how to do it in a way that is still progressive, but not just throwing caution to the wind, and not just trying to break all the height and spin records. It was just
bad did
they
he get
really
hurt?
refined it. I mean, surprisingly, I think he broke his hand, maybe his heel, and had like internal bruising, but
That's it.
it was really unbelievably lucky.
Yeah, I watched that and I was like, this guy.
Place, they just let him walk off the ramp. It was nuts. Yeah, it was, but it was definitely a shock to the system. And like I said, they started to refine that event where it's just like, all right, you guys, let's just, we're comfortable at this certain height. Let's just stick with that.
Yeah.
Even all the skaters said it themselves. They're like, well, we can really work on new tricks at this height instead of trying to
Go to the moon.
go to the moon, right?
Yeah. It's just.
Well, it's definitely a concern.
Yeah.
I can't say that I know many examples of it, but I'm not following people past their careers necessarily, except for close friends.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've had probably by all accounts over the years, at least like 30, either semi-concussions or heavy, I'd say like 3 or 4 heavy concussions.
Like out cold.
Yeah.
Out cold just 3 or 4 times.
Woke up in the ambulance, yeah. Lately, like I don't, and especially with all the information that we have now and with all the research, I went and proactively tried to figure out if I'm susceptible because...
Did you get that gene checked?
I did, yeah.
What is it, APOE4? Is that what it is?
Yes, I believe so. I do not have the gene that makes me susceptible. And I was even more concerned, I mean, because my mom, she passed away recently, but she had Alzheimer's dementia. And it makes you more susceptible to Alzheimer's dementia, and not just CTE.
Right.
I mean, I'm acting like I'm a medical expert. I just, I researched it enough to know that, okay, I'm not more at risk for that, but I don't, I'm not putting myself out there to have concussions anymore. Right. I'll tell you that. Well, I'm not doing those kind of moves that I was getting knocked out on.
Have you like?
I take supplements, stuff like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I only had a couple of concussions that affected me for a longer period of time, like for a week, where I couldn't focus or I had other, physical issues, and I don't feel any of those effects like that. No.
Wow.
And
I love San Diego.
Oh, me too. I'm not leaving. I keep getting different different views, different news, different guidelines. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, I'm go out wearing a mask, doing, trying to follow the guidelines as possible, as much as possible, while still leading a relatively normal life.
Yeah, it's a weird time, right?
And the strange part to me is the great divide in terms of, for instance, my daughter loves to get bagels in the morning before school. So I still try to do that with her sometimes so she can feel like we're doing a normal school day even before she goes online. And the bagel shop says, like, face mask required. And people just walk in without them and give you dirty looks for wearing the mask. And it's just like, I'm just following the rules of the place. Like, I'm just like, this isn't some war of politics here. I'm just following what they're asking me to do.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it's really, it's like they're making a stand by not. I'm like, okay, well, it's the same theory as no shirt, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Like, yeah, it's such a strange time. And like I said, I'm just, doing my best to follow the guidelines, the experts, and still try to maintain a semblance of normalcy for my family, so that we feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, we all feel that way. Yeah, it's.
I'm still like, there are certain appearances and events and things that have been so-called postponed. Some are very optimistic, where they think, well, okay, we're going to do it in July. I'm like, you think so? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
or
know.
August, or we're going to push it back, and it's just I just don't know what to believe. And I got a schedule for doing some promotional stuff for our video game coming out in September, and it's like, okay, August, going to Europe. I'm like, are you sure? I don't know. Are we going to be let in? Am I going to have to wait in quarantine for 2 weeks when I land? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a
I
weird
remember
time.
when a couple of my events got canceled, and I was in shock then.
Right.
And now I'm more in shock that they're trying to reschedule.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I had I'm going to be in this commercial. I mean, I don't know if they want me to say what it is or whatever, but they had to delay it because they're just like, yeah, it's not the right time to put that one out. But we know we didn't shoot it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Gotta be careful and whatever. I was just super excited to be in it. So I was like, no, but they're going to put it out there.
Statistically, yeah. I don't know if he's right though.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he's a conservative
It's so
fellow.
hard to know what to believe too.
That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. When systems.
I would hope so, but like I said, it still feels like a great divide even there.
Really?
Yeah, where people, when they opened the beaches, and then there was only one beach in our area open, and it was like spring break, just nuts.
Yeah.
And then people are frustrated with each other. What are you doing? You're putting everyone at risk, and it just was a mess. And then they're like, all right, now it's closed down for good. And then everyone just goes up to Newport or wherever they can, and then it got more crowded there, and it was a mess.
Well, they're
you can go surfing, but you can't park on the beach.
That's so stupid.
Which is very challenging, but hey, at least for surfing.
But that's so.
And you never know what is the rule now. It changes day by day, but it does feel like there's definitely a slow opening happening.
Yeah. So when we're talking about San Diego being,
some people do it. I never found it to help my skating. And I always felt like skating kept me fit, so I never really did it. I mean, outside of swimming and surfing, which is more upper body than skating, obviously, but I do feel like that would have benefited me later in life. I just got stuck in my mode, and then just skating. I don't do anything else. I do make an effort to like swim some laps, because my mom lived till her 90s, and she swore by swimming.
oh, swimming's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would go, through. I mean, I remember all as a kid, she had to get her 20 laps in every day. And we where I lived, the residential area had a community swimming pool that was like Olympic size. So that was like
nice.
a thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, my older brother was a surfer, and he got me into skating. Because he skated in the 70s when that was the thing, was they were trying to emulate surfing with skateboards. And so he actually gave me one of his old boards. That was my first skateboard. And then he would drive me to the skate park once a week, like come home from college and take me to the park. And then I just got hooked. Like that was my home away from home from that point on. And so I surf pretty regularly. I would say less now, but it was hard not to with my brother's influence. And we were in Hawaii. My brother actually used to be the editor of Surfer Magazine, so he knows all the surfers.
Wow!
Because he's a journalist, really good writer. Teaches at Stanford now, actually. And so we went to Hawaii. We went to Maui, and he said, "Hey, Laird said he'd take us out towing surfing if you want to go." I'm like, "We're gonna go towing surfing with Laird Hamilton." I don't think his level of what is mellow is something that is what we would consider. And I go, but we got to go. Like it's once in a lifetime.
Right.
So they took us out to Spreckles, which is near Jaws, which is their big spot. This is like early 2000s. So tow-in surfing was just starting to come into play. I'll never forget Dave Kalama, who's one of the surfers, one of his homies. He was trying out the first foil board there.
Oh, wow.
And he was wearing ski boots attached to the foil board. That's how he was riding it. I was like, these guys are out of their minds. And so
does it detach like a ski boot if you fall?
I never saw it detach.
Oh
He's
my
nuts.
God.
Yeah.
So you have to
focused on trying to survive myself to worry about what he was doing. But yeah, so Rush Randall, who's another windsurfer there, he was towing me, and Laird was towing my brother. And I'll never forget them being outside, and then they're saying it's a small day, and they're like, "Oh, I think there might be like some 10 or 12 foot sets," and I know what 10 or 12 foot in Hawaiian measurement means. And I was like, "Kid, just don't tow me into one of those, okay?" And then I'll never forget looking out, and Rush said, "Here comes one." I'm like, Where? Because you're so far out.
Right.
And he's like, "Get ready." Okay. And so then I got ready, and I'm getting towed, and all of a sudden this mountain just swells up underneath me. And before I know it, I'm just in the pit of this wave that was like double overhead. Biggest wave I've ever ridden for sure. And for me, it's backside. So when you're going backside, you're just sort of looking down the line. You're not looking back at the barrel.
What does that mean by backside?
So the wave is breaking this way, and
The
my
wave's coming over the
my
top.
back is to the face of the wave,
Oh, okay.
right? And backside's a little more challenging, just because of the turning and the way you're facing. So when you go on frontside, you're facing the wave. You can really see down the line. You can look back easily. So I'm going backside, and I remember looking at the wall, thinking like, I've ridden 20-foot skate ramps, and I'm like, that looks like about a 20-foot skate ramp. So I was going and I was cruising, and then I did a little cutback. So I started going back towards the barrel, and I looked at the barrel, and it was like the most frightening thing I've ever seen in my life, because it was like a massive hollow wave that you see in movies, that you see Laird just dancing around in, and I'm like, I'm not getting near that thing, and I immediately just turned back and went down the line even further to just get ahead of it. And then I did find myself, after a few waves, getting cocky, and I tried to pull into the barrel, and it just clobbered me in the head. And then you're wearing a life vest, and then I went down. I'll never forget, like, I felt myself going down one shelf, and trying to swim up to the top, and then I felt it go down another shelf, and I was like, oh, this is bad. And then finally made it up to the surface, and Rush is like 3 feet from me.
Oh, wow.
Because he's just been chasing. Those guys they're the masters.
Experts in recovering people that get.
And I was just like,
How long were you down for?
it wasn't like a crazy hold down, but in my inexperience and not conditioned body, it felt like a long time. And I told Rush, I was like, oh, that was scary. I've never been, held down that much. He's like, yeah, I've had my worst hold downs out here. Yeah, I never did well with that stuff. We got one, actually. We got one of the infrared ones.
Those are different.
Yeah. Well, I got to start somewhere. I'm not going to. Well, I don't, like I said, I don't really do it anyway. My wife, my kids, they like going in there, but I usually go in for a little bit, and like, we'll watch one episode of something, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. No way. No, I would never survive that. No. It's not. No one can go easy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I respect him and admire him, but I don't want him to train me. Yeah, so not my conditioning.
Right?
I think so. I think that there's an adventurous spirit, but also there's a sense of self-confidence that you gain and that you explore. Like, you want to see how much further you can take it. You want to test the limits. And I identify with that for sure. That's always been my drive, just to come up with new tricks. Like, I knew the first time I ever did a trick, like a new trick, and one that hadn't been done before, the buzz that I got from it was what I've been chasing my whole life. The idea that I created something new, like just on my own, with my own thoughts and creativity, and that, like, I did it my own way. And skateboarding was like that. It was like this art form to me, where there's this blank canvas, and it's just like, go make it your own.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Right, and it's just, like, you could show me a picture of two people doing the same trick, silhouette it, and I could tell you who it is.
Really? Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Because everyone has their own style, and they put their own flavor on it, and that's what I love. Like, I love that it's subjective like that. People think of it like, they don't like skaters themselves, especially the more hardcore purists, don't like to call it a sport. They're like, we're not a sport. I'm like, well, there's legitimate competition, so
yeah, and
there is a sporting element to it. But I agree, it is more of an art form and a lifestyle, because how can you're comparing apples to oranges always. Stamp on it. And that's what I love about it, because it's so diverse.
Yeah.
It's always different. A lot of times it's like, how can I combine these two things that I know I have dialed in? Like, can I make them work together? Sometimes it's a happy accident. Like, you go try something, your board spins the other way, and it's like, well, wait, if I caught it there, that would have worked out. I literally created a new trick yesterday. Yesterday? Yeah, because we are doing this. When will this air?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Well, we're doing sort of a we call it an NBD best trick event at my ramp. NBD means never been done. And so my idea was that, and this will all come out, but my idea was that while we're all stuck, doing this social distancing and whatnot, let's do a best trick event where everyone gets 1 hour on my ramp, all the best vert skaters. So you get 1 hour to get a trick on video. So it's literally just one dude or one skater and one filmer at the ramp at a time. And I was the guinea pig. So yesterday morning was like, all right, you're the first hour, go. And I had to come up with this trick, and I started trying one that I had been working on, and it just kept slipping away, like getting worse every attempt. And so I went and sort of switched gears into a trick that I had tried a couple months ago, and was like, if you're ever gonna make this happen, this is it. And finally one just clicked, and I made it. And it was like it was the combination of two tricks that I have pretty dialed, but putting them together added this element of just so much to miss. Like they all, everything had to come together at the exact moment and land on my feet on the coping in the right position. And I knew if I got it once, I'd make it, but like, I'm never gonna do that trick again. That's how technical it is now, where I just know that, okay, I got that one, done it, got it on video. I don't wanna go through that again. When I first started skating, skateboards were all over the place. So they were made of different materials. They were different with like all different shapes. The urethane had just come into play. But I would say for the last 30 years, it's pretty much the same construction. 7-ply wood, maple skateboards, trucks have not changed. Wheels have changed in size and hardness, but it's still the same urethane for the most part. So there hasn't been a lot of huge advancements. The big changes are the shapes of the boards.
Now, why synthetic?
That's the big question, and something that I would like to pursue. But we really need a sea change in skateboarding with materials. I believe that.
Yeah. And
we haven't found anything that responds the same. Or the other thing is, skaters, as much as they are very progressive and they like to do different things and think outside the box and whatnot. If you try to sell them a deck that's $200, that's gonna be hard. Even if you can convince them that it's gonna last 3 times as long, 4 times as long. They found like there's some people have done different construction where they add a different ply in, and that has worked a little bit. But like I said, there just hasn't been that one seed planted where it's like, all right, this is it. I tried something along those lines, and it just, like I said, didn't have that reflex. That's the other thing. We're kind of stuck where this is how skateboard should weigh.
Right.
And so if you bring in something that's way lighter, maybe that's not the answer. But we don't know. It just, it takes R&D for sure.
And you would have to get...
and to believe in it.
Yeah, and get behind it.
Yeah. Fun.
It's great that you can still do it, and then you're still, you're also, it's not like...
Well, it went through the years. So when I first started skating, the sort of unspoken rule was once you're at an age of responsibility, you're 18, you got to get a job. You can't skate for a living. No one can. So... your skating career is over by then. And then as I turned 18, things started to sort of ramp up with skating, forgive the pun, but, and things started to kind of explode. And I remember around that time, there was a photo in Thrasher of this guy, Mark Lake, who was an older skater at the time. And it was a picture of him doing one of those hand plant, like upside down on a ramp. And it was like, Mark Lake, 30 and still going for it. And I remember I was like in my early 20s thinking, that's crazy. He's 30. Right. And then as things progress, like we realize that we're all sort of, if we're able to do this for a living and we can really pursue it and we have support, we're getting better into our 30s. I mean, when I did the 900, the X Games, I was 31.
Wow.
And so then it was just like, well, what is the limit? I don't know. I guess I'm sort of the guinea pig now, or leading the charge of how far you can take it. And I've definitely I refined my style. So I'm not doing big impact stuff. I'm not doing the more, the big spins, the big airs and stuff. I've learned to get more technical with my skating, and that has allowed me to stay creative, but maintain my health.
Yeah, that's why.
It's just I skate for a couple hours a day. I'd say 4 times a week, And that's pretty much my exercise. But definitely, I could use some help with endurance these days.
Well, have you thought about doing something? Like, what would you do?
I don't know. I guess I would listen to the experts. I would tap you. I haven't, yeah, but like I said, it's just because that's worked for me pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
My only really ailment is my neck.
What's wrong with your neck?
Just I've had so many whiplashes, like just we call them chicken necks, because you shoot out, and I've had so many like different ways that whenever I'm like if I'm sitting here and someone were to call me over there, when I go to turn to look at them, they'll definitely say like, "What's wrong with your neck?"
Oh.
That happens to me every day, and I'm like, "What's wrong with my neck?" I don't know, 40 years of whiplash.
Have you got an MRI?
Yeah, and I do. That's the only thing that I get worked on. So there's a guy near where I live who does chiropractic, but also does a lot of body work, and he just works on my neck once a week.
Just massages it? And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did try, but it was just awkward.
Yeah, it's awkward. But
I did it when I did sort of this racing training with Cadillac a couple years ago, and their racers do that.
Okay, that makes
for
sense.
turning their head, you know, checking their mirrors.
Yeah.
I'm open to ideas.
Yeah. I'd be
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird though. A lot of my peers, they have more knee problems than ankle problems, and I've just realized that mine's all on my neck.
You never had any knee problems or ankle problems at all?
I had surgery. I tore my meniscus in both knees. Actually, got it cut out. Tore my PCL, but always came back from it.
That's amazing.
I was always very flexible as a kid, so I know that was to my advantage for sure.
Oh, for sure.
And like I said, when I went through the sort of street era of the early 90s, I was rolling my ankles left and right. So I never actually broke an ankle, but they're loose. That was very strange. But
How are you gonna get that sand out of there now?
Yeah, good question. No, well, you know what? If they say skate parks are open, the skaters will do it. They'll very, get the sand out. Yeah, they're all very DIY, resourced.
It's just like what
I did see some some helicopter footage on a news feed where there were some guys that actually dug a sort of a path so that they could skate through the park. So they cleared out one area, and they kept trying. Like this guy was trying to get a trick on video, so he kept trying the same trick, and the helicopters just shoot him. I was like, "What world are we living in?"
So strange.
That they're trying to keep skaters out of public areas and schoolyards and stuff, and give them a place to go. Right. And now you're just forcing them back to those days.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to throw around a skateboard.
Yeah, it's funny. When I first started, I have a foundation for public skate parks. We've been going 20 years, actually.
How does that work?
Really well. We basically give communities the resources to get a park going. Like if someone in their community has started a petition or fundraising or just raising awareness that they need a park, we sort of give them the roadmap to do that and funding to do it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And design help and things like that. So it's been great. We've helped to fund over 900 skate parks now. All 50 states. We've given away almost $10 million.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my proudest work. But
That's so cool.
When I started it, there was a point where we were trying to get funding and trying to raise awareness, and I'm doing visits to children's cancer wards and stuff like that. And at some point, I was like, I'm trying to build skate parks, and I remember. This conversation I had very vividly, actually, with Lance Armstrong, and this is when he was the face of cancer research. You know what I mean? Like, say what you will about his competitive career, but he did so much for cancer awareness and research. And I'm visiting Children's Hospital with Lance Armstrong, and when Lance Armstrong walks into a cancer ward back then, like the C's part, you know what I mean? It was just like this. It was like, oh, he's here. And I remember having lunch with him that day, and I was like, it's so weird to be with you. You're doing so much for cancer and cancer victims, and I'm just trying to build playgrounds. Yeah, like concrete waves. And he said, look, the number one cause of cancer, or number two cause of cancer in the U.S. is obesity. And by building those skate parks, you are preventing cancer. You're preventing obesity.
Wow.
and that was heavy for me.
That is heavy.
And it really gave me a lot of inspiration, and a lot more motivation.
Well, you're creating,
right, and for for people to like-minded people to hang out, like to develop a community. I mean, when I was a kid, like I felt like an outcast. I felt like I didn't belong in sports. I didn't belong in my school. And when I went to the skate park and there was just this band of misfits listening to punk music and weird hairdos from all walks of life, I was like, this is it. This is my crew. And I want the same sense of community for, we're not trying to build training grounds for Olympians. We're just trying to build a place for them to feel like they belong and feel like their community actually cares about them. And nowadays, I mean, it's way different now. The sort of perspective on skating or the attitude towards skating is that parents are doing it with their kids, and little girls are encouraged to try it, and that just wasn't the case when I was a kid. Like,
well, I think it's.
I mean, I was always happy to at least advocate for skating and try to explain to people like this has a real positive impact on kids. You're too focused on the hairdos and the music and stuff. You got to really look at what it provides someone's mentality.
Yeah.
I think the generation of parents now grew up at a time when skating was starting to be cool. Yeah, okay. And so either they're encouraging of their kids skating or they're actually skating with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, the coolest part for me is that I still get to participate and I get to bear witness to all this. Like, sure. I mean, the name, like even some of the Z-Boy guys, like Tony Alva still skates. I just saw a photo of him grinding a pool. He's 60 something.
Holy shit. But when you fall at 60 something,
it narrowed down my discipline to the ramp because I know how to fall on a ramp and I wear the pads, and that's what's kept me going.
But even that's why I'm encouraging strength and conditioning. Like when I see people in their 50s that are doing things, I'm like, ooh, okay. But do you lift?
I learned that. Well, I broke my pelvis.
Oh,
I was almost 40.
How'd you break your pelvis?
I was doing a loop ramp, which is something that I had done many times before that. And the loop that we were skating was kind of weathered and kind of slow. And I tried to adjust for that. And I just overshot it. Like I shot out at the top and then just fell straight to the bottom.
That's kind of
and it just like your whole body freezes up.
Yeah, I couldn't walk for like 25 yards. I had to stop and sit. And let it loosen up.
I had the same thing. When I went through that, the thing that I had to adjust mostly was that I didn't realize I was favoring my back foot when I would skate because the fracture of my pelvis was on my front leg or front leg side, and I ended up
injuring something else.
I actually got KO'd once because I was leaning back more than I should have been, and I thought I was balanced, and then found myself just on my back, like KO'd.
Oh shit!
And then another time I was putting so much weight, like because when you skate, you put one foot on the tail of the board, and I was trying to get speed for something going on the big ramp, and I had so much force on my tail that I broke it off. Like going through the flat bottom of the ramp, my tail just was left behind me with my foot doing the splits.
That's so crazy.
And I realized that's when I realized that I needed to readjust my weight distribution because of my pelvis and try to figure out how to skate properly again.
Rehabilitation? Did you?
I basically sat around for almost 2 months, and then slowly started to walk, and then was skating about 6 weeks after not walking. And
so you didn't do any rehab?
I did some stuff in the pool. I did have a trainer that was helping me. A guy that I knew that used to work on skate stuff. So he did help me for a few weeks. And then I started skating. It was actually, I was working towards a goal. We had a big exhibition in Orlando that was already booked. And I was like, all right, that's the timeline.
How many weeks out was that?
I want to say it was about 12 weeks from when I got hurt.
Oh, wow. That's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
To recover from a bone break,
yeah.
almost 40.
I didn't, wasn't my best performance, not my best work, but I got through it. and then really had to figure out how to rebuild my confidence. That's the thing I lost the most. Because I started to question everything.
I can only imagine.
I was doing a lot of stuff in the pool with resistance with my leg and stuff like that. That was pretty much it. It was just more, I just felt stiff. And like he said, like when you have an injury like that, you can't cough. Like, you know what I mean? You can't, like sneezing. If you feel a sneeze coming on, it's traumatic.
Right.
Because everything hurts. Yeah, it's about to get shot. Yeah. And then like just going to the bathroom is a trauma.
Oh, God.
He's mostly focused on the pool.
Yeah,
doing that.
see if we can find them. They're pretty cool. George St. Pierre pool workouts. Yeah, he has, he's a fascinating guy, a really intelligent guy, and he's gone through a bunch of different kinds of strength and conditioning routines and attitudes about it over his career. And at one point in time, he really embraced gymnastics, and he got really into gymnastics. But now, most of what he does, he goes to the pool and see these things he's wearing.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He's got like these...
All right, well, I'm going to leave here with a whole new attitude.
Yeah, well,
it was funny. That was one of the things that when I told my kids I was coming here, they're like, "He's going to talk to you about working out, you know." I was like, "I'm sure," and they go, "But you don't work out." I go, "I know." I think so. Yeah.
That's iffy.
What's that?
I said that's iffy. I think
Well,
so.
let's put it this way. I don't eat to excess like I used to. I think that's really what I've learned getting older is just like, don't go crazy with everything, you know, drinking, eating, like just eat till you're not overly full. Just eat enough and watch what I eat. Like for sure, when I was a kid, it was all junk food, everything. It was sugar cereals, McDonald's, Jack in the Box. I mean, our big going out night with my dad was Bob's Big Boy. That was like, we were living
in
large.
Burbank?
No, in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was it. I mean, without like, I never went to nice places. The extent of his nice place was like, hey, this place has prime rib for $5. Okay. So I didn't really grow up with health conscious diet. And then as I got older, I discovered, well, mostly just so much great food, and then realizing that, you know, I got to get more greens and really watch it. And so I've managed to be able to do that, I'd say, over the last 20 years.
Do you take supplements at all?
I do, yeah.
What do you take?
Yeah, I have a whole bevy of stuff that this nutritionist gave me. I wish I could name them all, but I just know which bottles they are. But I can tell when I've missed a day or two on them. I mean, just in terms of how I feel.
Well,
But I do have to admit that I do love like barbecue.
Of course.
You know,
Who doesn't?
My wife's not much of a fan.
Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with her?
She eats much more healthy than I do. She's more Mediterranean. There's a place in San Diego that I've been going called Abby's that I think is pretty spectacular. That's
San Diego's got
my
great
daughter
food.
loves barbecue too, so that's our big lunch outing.
San Diego's got some great food, man.
You there?
That's crazy.
The last small beach towns.
But it's a city. Like,
Right.
you don't
Well,
feel like
but
you're
you know,
missing
if you
stuff.
fan out, especially if you go north,
Yeah.
it's more like no one can really build on the coastline anymore. So the homes that are there, and it's not going to get any more crowded. I was telling you guys, actually, I was on a I was on a Zoom call just on audio on the way up here, and I was passing LAX on 405, and usually it's just dead stop, right? And finally, I was just like, oh man! So I turned the camera on and faced it out. Like, you guys got to see this. I'm driving. Look at this. There's the 105. There's LAX. I'm still moving.
You know,
Oh my god, we sound like that SNL skit, the Californians.
wow. I don't know that skit, but it's pretty
All they
easy
do
to
is talk
write.
about traffic.
Well, it's anywhere else?
Not really. My wife and I sometimes sort of muse about we'd love to live in New York once all of our kids are out, but probably for a brief time. There, right before everything turned upside down.
Oh, wow.
And it was already feeling shaky. I don't know. We went out to dinner. We saw our friend's band form this little club, and there was this sense of unease.
What year, month was this?
That was in early March.
Oh, yeah. So it was just starting to get there.
Or no, it was in February. Sorry.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. But it was like late. It was just, there was something in the air where you knew something was going to change.
A buddy of mine caught it there in New York.
Yeah, my
Late
buddy of mine
February.
too, skater, my age, and he went through hell.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the New York.
My oldest son and I were extremely sick in February, both like as sick as we've ever been. We were convinced that we had gone through it once everything and so I managed to get a test. I had to pay through the nose. It wasn't, the tests are not available. But I lucked into one and we both didn't have it.
Interesting. Yeah, we've been testing pretty much everybody. I didn't test my mistake.
Okay, well, I was negative as of a month ago. As of a month ago.
Well, that's good. Yeah,
It's just
weird.
wild right now.
It's weird. And we
I can tell you, watching it at home with my kids, they had the same excitement level.
Oh, me too.
I was curious about that, though. Do you think the fighters had a different sense of energy or motivation because they didn't have the crowd?
Audience as well.
That remains to be seen. I assume that's probably where it's going to go. I'm not part of the whole Olympic qualifying thing going on, so I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to continue to qualify people going into next year.
Yeah.
We had an event planned that was supposed to happen in June in Salt Lake City, big vert skate contest, and it has been pushed to August. And I don't know if we can do it with an audience or not. I'm not the one that will decide if it happens or not, but I hope that we can get it done with the necessary guidelines and whatnot, because I do feel like our type of skating, which is the vert skating, is sort of a lost art. That's not going to be in the Olympics, by the way.
So
Yeah, well, next year, but
next
yes.
year. Is it 2021?
2021, yeah.
Interesting.
So skateboarding, the disciplines are street, which is sort of the handrails and stairs, ledges and stuff like that you see, and then what they call park. And park is sort of a mishmash of pool skating, but also some other skate park elements like banks and curves and things like that. So it's more because that type of skating is more accessible, especially internationally, than what we call vert skating. But it's kind of to me, it's a disservice to skating because vert skating, like you said, it's the thing you can understand if you're not a skater. People are flying around, they're doing gymnastics, they're doing somersaults, and that type of stuff. You see a very muted version of that in park skating.
And why those events?
I think that's it, because of the accessibility, and I have to respect that.
Well, it's just nice that
for
it's in
instance, there's like a strong skate. There is a skate scene in places like Ethiopia, and Ethiopia has parks. They don't have vert ramps, obviously.
Oh.
So I understand on that level, you're going to have a much more well-rounded competitive field.
That's cool that Ethiopia has embraced skateboarding. I would
pretty
like
cool
to see that.
Yeah,
Is there
I've been there.
videos of you've been there?
Yeah.
Oh, see, here it is. Jamie's already got it. The best.
Afghanistan is a skate, for lack of a better word, camp facility and educational facility in Afghanistan, in Kabul. And they teach girls. They give them educations, and they learn how to skate.
Whoa.
In fact, there was a documentary on them that won an Academy Award at the last Oscars.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you got anything on that?
That was my in for. It's called Learning to Skate. That's Skatistan. It's called Learning to Skate in a War Zone If You're a Girl. That's the name of the documentary.
That's got to be very dangerous for them, though, right? Because the fundamentalists don't want them doing.
Well, so that's the thing is that they see it. The culture sees skateboards as a toy, not a sport, and allows girls to do it.
Oh wow.
So they don't see it as this co-ed sport at all. And so it's really interesting that the ratio of boys to girls are equal skating in Afghanistan. And the same goes for, they have another program in Cambodia, and they have one in South Africa. I've been to all of them, or not Kabul, but
Look at that picture. That is so wild. The mountain.
they're one of the best.
Wow. That's wild. That's crazy. The skating.
It's really, every day is like a new surprise. I don't think they're going to reinvent the wheel in terms of how they judge. I think that they have to be very concise with their criteria now in terms of writing it down, because before it was just sort of loose and that guy, that skater ripped and went higher and looked cooler, and we gave him first. And now it's got to be much more. But it's more about technical aspects, like how the difficulty factor, how you flow, like how you link tricks together, how much speed you have, how high you go. I mean, all those factors. But at the end of the day, when you go to a skate contest, you can tell the top skaters. It's just obvious that they were ripping. They used the course better. They went higher. They spun more. They flipped their board hard in more difficult ways, and they were the winners. Not really sure how they're picking judges. I'm not,
For
like
the
I said.
Olympics.
But
for a standard competition, how would they?
A lot of them are ex-pros. Yeah.
And so it's
always up for debate.
Yeah.
Who should have won that event or this, or
Well, I
how
would
did the
imagine
score good your run was. Yeah. And who had a better day.
Similar.
Yeah. And I think that, I'm hoping that will be my job to explain to the audience.
Oh, right.
I was supposed to be there in Tokyo, doing some commentary, not the play-by-play, but more sort of, coming in and out of there and doing whatever shows they need me to do. But
so
I
did
would
they
like
postpone
to
the Olympics for a year? Is that
for
what
a
they
year.
did?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you would like to?
I would like to be there to try to bridge that gap.
Right.
Of the non-skating viewer who is interested, and explain to them why this nuance is going to score way higher than this other, even though they look the same to you.
Yeah.
And I've done it. Like they had the Vans Park series all last year, where we went to all over the world. We went to China, Brazil, Canada, France, and they built these parks that they left there. But I was doing all the commentary for the events, and that was kind of that's where my strengths are, is being able to explain those things to non-skaters. I think that's the silver lining with the Olympics. I mean, there is a lot of controversy in the hardcore skate scene where it's just like, we don't belong in the Olympics. We've always done this to be anti that type of thing anyway. Yeah. And then it's just like, well, you guys, all those things that you love about skating will still exist.
Right.
You can still go hop fences and skate the hand. Like, that's not taken away from you. If anything, it's going to bring it to a bigger audience that is going to be interested.
Yeah.
And I believe a more international audience. I think that's the really cool part about it. The other thing is this, like, if you think that the competition element is what is somehow sanitizing skating, I grew up skating competitions. I literally entered my first contest at age 10. That is the only way you got recognized when I was a kid. Like, this is not something new to skateboarding. It's just that now there are different opportunities in skating, and there is a way to make a living even if you don't compete. And so because that exists, people are just like, oh, Olympics are that's a sport competition. I'm like, yeah, but we already have Street League. We already have the Do Tour. We already have X Games. Those things all exist. So we're going to have this other big event once every 4 years. I mean, hey, I've lived with so much ridicule my whole life that it's like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously still haters, like, you're a sellout and whatnot, but it's like,
do you read it?
If someone's making enough noise, I'll see it, and every once in a while, I like to see what the general vibe is on something. But when I grew up, like, I think my journey allowed me to really be prepared for that, because when I was a kid, I was doing this outcast activity, right? So I was already not cool in school. And then I started skating, and I was like a scrawny little kid with a really sort of what they call robotic style, because I was focusing on tricks. So I was getting made fun of in the skate world. So I was like an outcast in this outcast activity, and it was really isolating. And at some point I was just like, I love this too much to listen to these people and not do it. Basically, when I first started getting into skating, especially pool skating, to be a pool skater, you had to be super cool, look like you're surfing. It was all about your style, right? And it was all about like how you flow. And if you're doing aerials, it's got to look cool. And I was super scrawny, super short kid. And so all I really knew how to do was to maneuver my board. And so I was doing these tricks where I'd like spin my board under my feet and do these weird sort of hand plants and aerial tricks and things where it just wasn't the normal, and it wasn't really considered the cool way to skate. And so they were like, they call me circus skater. They're like, oh, there's Tony with the circus tricks.
Oh, wow.
And then at some point I loved what I was doing, and I didn't really listen to it. And then I got more confident and I got stronger. And then I started doing this stuff like way up high in the air. And then it was sort of undeniable that I was like, oh, well, that is something. I just didn't have the bulk to be able to do it anyway. So
The physical bulk.
Yeah, like I just didn't have that weight behind me. And so what I did was, back then, in order to do aerials out of pools, you had to like reach down and grab your board and sort of muscle it into the air and above the coping. And I learned how to launch into the air without grabbing my board and then grabbing it at the peak. And that allowed me to get the height when I was still really scrawny and weak. And they said that technique was cheating. Like they literally wrote that in Thrasher magazine. It's just like, well, Tony Hawk cheats because he ollies into his airs, and that way he can just grab it wherever. And I was just like, yes, that's exactly it. That's what I'm trying to do.
Weird. That's so weird. So
it was just like this old guard in skating, and they didn't like to see anything new or sort of fringe. And then I started doing that, and then a lot of my peers who were my age, they all figured that same technique out, and then we just kind of took over. That became the way to skate. And but then through the years, like in those days, skating was still very much a novelty. And then in the 90s, like X Games came into play, and then all of a sudden my name was well known, not mainstream, but getting there. And then our video game came out, and then it was just like, oh, you're just a sellout.
wow.
And it was like,
because of the video game?
because the video game and the endorsements that followed from that, I was doing stuff for Jeep, for McDonald's, for Doritos, and they were just like, oh, you're just a sellout. I was like, when I turned pro at age 14, if McDonald's had asked me to be in a commercial, I would have jumped on it. Are you kidding me? Like, I was eating McDonald's my whole life. I still do. So it was more like they thought somehow I changed my values, and was just like, I haven't changed my value system. It's just that I'm getting these opportunities finally. And I've been doing this for most of my life. Sure. But so what I'm saying is that just sort of steeled my resolve, so once social media came into play and people were talking shit online, I was like, you're not getting to me through this. It was from a skater that I really respected too. Like he was quoted in the magazine, and it was crushing.
Wow. That's such a bitch ass approach.
Like I said, it was just weird because skating was such a small community at the time, and it was like, why are we fighting
right.
in our little tiny world?
It's always going to be that way.
Yeah,
that's just humans. Yeah,
it was harder for me because all I wanted to be was accepted as a skater. Mm-hmm. I'd kind of given up on my peers, on my schoolmates. I knew I wasn't going to fit in there. And so I was like, I found this thing, and then just like, you guys don't like me the way I do it? Rough. But any ill will, a lot of people are like, oh, you should go back to school, like you go to your reunion, and I was like, it's not some revenge for me. I'm just so thankful that I still get to do this for a living. Like, this is seriously living the dream. Like, I get to do this for a living. I get to come on your show because I'm a skateboarder. Like, the stuff that I've gotten to do over my life is beyond any dream I could have ever written or imagined. And it's all because I just kept skating. It's crazy. The kind of stuff that we've gotten to do, especially as a family, like the kind of trips we've taken and people we've met.
For skating. Do you know who that guy is?
I
do. You know him?
I think he fell on some hard times. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, at its core, the feeling I get when I'm on a skateboard is the same. Like when I just go out, just practicing on my ramp or in our backyard or whatever, I can just feel that happiness, that sort of peace. And like, it's the one thing in my life that I'm fully in control of. And I just, like, that's my escape.
That's so cool.
I never imagined that. I never imagined skating into my 30s.
I
have a couple friends that are a couple years older than me, and they're sort of my, they're my gauge.
Yard?
I have a small concrete setup that's not huge, but you know, it's fun. And then I have a proper size big vert ramp at my office. And I mean, in the last 2 months, those are the only places I'm at.
Is it an indoor thing, the vert ramp?
It's indoor, yeah.
How high is it?
It is 13 and a half, 14 feet.
Wow. So you just...
Live streams from there just to provide entertainment for people.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and we did one with DJ Z Trip. He was doing the like mixing up on the deck, and we were doing tricks up on his table. That was pretty cool. And then we are working on this Best Trick NBD thing. I actually got some money from a sponsor, so you know, just trying to make content, make entertainment as best we can. I used to be on SiriusXM. Actually, that was the first time I reached out to you because I had a SiriusXM show for 10 years. Oh. And I stopped doing it just because it was, I kind of went as far as I could with getting guests, and I just wasn't really moving up the ladder, and it was really hard to maintain that schedule. It was, you know, it was only once a week, but for me, it was like, I got to book studio time in LA, drive up here, beg some. I mean, I didn't have anyone running the show, so it was just more like, hey, does anyone know Seth Rogen? Can you? But I had a good run. I mean, I definitely like my last 2 guests were Pharrell and Seth Rogen.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I felt like, all right, that's
Pharrell
about
the sports guy.
No, Pharrell.
Oh, the music.
So I felt like if I'm not, I can't really go further with this idea, and let's just end it here. So. It was fun though.
Do you do that now?
No, not really. I mean, I'm happy to, but it is. Yeah, I just don't. I guess I just don't want to be that guy that's like, hey man, do my podcast.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt when I like sent you the first message on Twitter. I was like, hey, you want to come on my SiriusXM show? And that was right when your show started blowing up, and I saw you all. And I was like, oh, he doesn't have time for my show. Oh, for sure. I try to tell people too. You don't have to be the best in your field to enjoy it and make a living at it. Like you can maybe find some angle on it that maybe isn't even the thing, but it gets you in the door and you get to be part of the community or the industry, and you can live like that, whether it's doing video or art or, you know, behind the scenes, you're still part of that scene and it's still super cool. And I feel like that's what's lost on kids. They just want to be the best. They want all the stardom, and it's just like, no, think of something that you would enjoy and make that your job, because for me that's what success is. And that's just the thing that sucks about that mindset, is that if you do reach any sense of that, a lot of times that's when it all falls apart.
How so?
I feel like a lot of people get a taste of it and they're no longer motivated. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
I think in a lot of cases, I've seen it in skateboarding especially, where they just want to they want to get in the magazine, they want to be, or win the contest, and then they finally do, and they're not motivated to keep it going.
That's interesting.
Or to progress their own skating.
So instead of just enjoying it,
means to an end, and then there's no more inspiration. And that's another distraction, another, you know, and some people, that's what they revel in.
Yeah.
And you can lose sight of, I mean, I think that's what I was lucky, that I was young enough and had success, and I saw some of my peers kind of fall into that, and I saw how it affected their skating, and that was my signal. It was like, if you follow that road, your skating is going to suffer, and my focus was always getting better at skating.
That's interesting.
I saw him during those days.
Did you really?
Yeah, in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I got to see him a couple of times.
But you could tell that he could just come out and scream, and everyone's like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
He did a thing where he called people from the audience to come up and then call
their ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. But in his day, man, he was a genius. Wasn't keeping it a secret.
No.
That he was doing it.
No, he was.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
I think you're